Hello my darlings, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Miranda and I am the Enchantress of Avalon. Today's video is going to be one I've done similarly in the past with a different tarot deck, but today we are going to be focusing on the major arcana of the Arthurian tarot by Caitlin and John Matthews. And this deck was illustrated by Miranda Gray. So I really love this deck. I have a very special connection to the deck as I did the entire Hallow Quest journey that is included with this guidebook, the complete Arthurian Tarot. This is the updated guidebook, but there's an older guidebook that does this, that also has the Hallow Quest journey on it. And it's essentially a journey that takes over a year to complete. So I did that whole journey. I'm just trying to get... So the Hallow Quest course, it's the back of the book. And that journey was so amazing. And it was such an important impact to my personal spiritual journey that I do have a very deep connection to this deck for that reason. And so it's still one of my favorite decks to this day. And I did the Hallow Quest 3 years ago. I completed it about 2.5 years ago, but I was in the midst of doing that 3 years ago. And I just want to do a run through of the choices made for the 22 major arcana cards. Now, the first card is, of course, the Fool card. As you know, we do the Fool's Journey. They chose to title the card The Seeker. And if you're doing the Hallow Quest, you are the seeker wandering through the wasteland to reinvigorate this wasteland about you. It's a very important card in the deck. And he is accompanied by 3 birds, which personal interpretation I think of as the birds of Rhiannon, because they are a trio of birds with him, and he is in this rainbow path going forward into his quest. The first figure he meets is the traditional magician card, as always on the Fool's Journey. And of course, our magician is Merlin. Of course it is. Who else would it be? And Merlin is seen here with all of the traditional accoutrement of the magician. There is a spear instead of a wand because this deck uses spears as wands. And there is a sword. There is a chessboard. The chessboard is what's representing the pentacle suit. In this case, in this deck, it's called stones. And the chessboards and all those kind of boards. There's a more ancient board too that was played in the medieval period. Cannot remember the name of it currently, but that is what that's representing. And then of course a chalice representing the grail, because the cups are called specifically grails in this deck, because again, of course they would be. And we have above him the red and white dragons forming the infinity symbol, which harkened to one of his origin stories of making that prediction about the red and white dragons fighting beneath Dinas Imaris, causing it to crumble. And that is who we meet with that magician energy. The next leg of the journey, you're meeting the Lady of the Lake for the High Priestess card. And this Lady of the Lake card can technically represent any of the various ladies of the lake in the Arthurian legends. Whether you want to say it's Nimue, it's Vivian, or like me, you interpret it as Morgan Le Fay. She has her book open. She is holding the sword. Of course, Excalibur. The Lady of the Lake gifts Excalibur to Arthur, and she has some water birds surrounding her as her lake is behind her. And at that point in the journey, you are learning communion with other realms. Avalon in this case. Again, that's my interpretation. For our Empress card, we have Guinevere. And Guinevere is spinning in a field on Beltane with a white cow in the background, which is a very sacred image for the divine feminine and for goddesses of the land and of fertility, which ties in perfectly with the abundance, prosperity, and fertility of the Empress card. And this is honestly possibly my favorite card in the entire deck. I've always been very drawn to the Empress card. It's a very important card for me, and I really adore this particular Empress energy with Guinevere on the card because we're having that Fairy Queen tie-in. The Emperor is, again, the most obvious card in the deck. Arthur. Of course, Arthur is the Emperor. And we see him seated with Excalibur on his lap. There is a dragon banner flying because he is the Pendragon. And we have a raven on the corner of the card, which is a psychopomp bird and a big symbol of the other world. So that ties in his otherworldly origins. And he is that ideal king who is ruling over his land. Okay. Moving on from the Emperor, we meet the Hierophant. The Hierophant in this deck is represented by the great bard Taliesin. And he is here with two children. He is telling them a story because he is a bard and he's a poet as well. So he's telling a story to them. And this is very much the teacher aspect of the Hierophant, which is my favorite aspect of that card. So I really do adore this energy, and I love that around him in the, I don't know if you can really see it, around him in the smoke, we see the different animals from the story of his birth, the Caradwen's chase story, all through here of how he became Taliesin, which just really ties in. It makes me think that is the story he's in fact reciting here. Moving on from Taliesin, we have the White Hart card as the lovers, because the White Hart is a start of a journey in the Arthurian legends and in Celtic tales in general. And we have that inciting incident leading to a love story very famously in the Arthurian legends, which is why it appears on this card in this way. I am realizing this video is over 7 minutes in already, so I have to start picking up. So I'm going to be a little bit more brief with the rest of the cards. The 7th card is Prydwen. I think I'm saying it correctly. I do not know. I'm still only learning Welsh. But Prydwen is the ship that Arthur sails into the underworld in one of the earliest Arthurian legends when they are going to seek this cauldron from the underworld. And this is our Chariot card in this deck. So very important. You have that energy of success, of travel, of things happening one after another, which is very much Chariot energy. The 8th card, our Strength card, is represented by Gawain, one of the great knights of the Round Table and a nephew of Arthur. He, of course, wins his challenge set for him by Morgan Le Fay in the tale of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and utterly embracing both aspects of strength, the more emotional side of strength and the physical brute strength that all knights have. Next, we have the Hermit card, which is simply titled the Grail Hermit in this deck. It is represented as a great teacher, a great sage of Arthurian legend, one of the teachers of Merlin when he was young. And this is that, could also just be considered an aspect of Merlin, of him going within the woods and just communing with nature, being of nature. And that introspection is very prevalent. For the wheel, we have the Round Table. And the Round Table is of course the intense iconography, one of the most iconic elements of the Arthurian legends. But I love that we have this triple we have Stonehenge, we have the table, and we have the Grail, because all three are elements that interconnect within the Arthurian. And it is that Wheel of Fortune energy. If you sit at the Siege Perilous at the table and are willing to quest for the Grail, you may attain it. Your fortune will be on an upswing. Next, for our Justice card, we have Sovereignty. And this is pretty much an amalgamation of all sovereignty goddesses. It is the idea of sovereignty manifested in human form. In divine form, actually, I should say. And she is by her river. You may drink of one of the three strains of the river, the black, the white, or the red. And this is a card of divine justice, really. It has that very much divine justice vibe to it. So it's very appropriate. Next, for our Hanged Man, we have the Wounded King, which in this case would be, of course, referring to the Grail King or the Fisher King, who is wounded and will forever be wounded until the wasteland is healed. And that is at the root of everything. But there is much knowledge gained from going on the Grail quest and trying to heal the Wounded King. And that is why he's appearing here as the Hanged Man, because the Hanged Man is that restriction, energy, that being bound up, but gaining insight through it. So that is how that was chosen. The next card, our Death card, is the Watcher at the Ford, which is essentially kind of the Welsh counterpart to the Irish Banshee. And she, instead of screaming or crying, watches the clothes of bloodied warriors in the river before a battle. And if they see their clothes being washed, their armor and such, they know they will not come from that battle alive. She is that hearkening of death and that realization that all things must die for new things to flourish. And that's what we learn with the Death card. For the Temperance card, we have the Cauldron. The cauldron sought by Arthur, the many cauldrons of Welsh Celtic myth are represented, and 3 of the 9 maidens whose breath cools the cauldron and who tend the cauldron are pictured on the card. I think they just couldn't fit 9. It would have been very busy to try and fit 9. And the cauldron is that balance, that tempering of the flame so it does not boil over. And it is such a lovely, lovely card. It's one of my favorite temperance cards, actually. For our Devil, who else could be chosen from the Arthurian legends but the Green Knight? The Green Knight was a Lord Bertilac, who was transfigured by Morgan Le Fay using fairy glamour into the Green Knight to test Gawain. Originally, it was to scare Guinevere to death, his appearance, but when Gawain actually took up the charge, Morgan saw an opportunity and had Bertilac remain transfigured to test Gawain, in actually both forms. And testing is part of the traditional devil energy. It's that testing of not allowing these wild energies to overtake you. And that balance of, yes, we have innate wildness in us, but we are also able to balance that with the restriction we're putting upon ourselves, so we aren't bound by addictive behaviors. And that is what this card is representing. The Tower card is simply called the Spiral Tower, and it is a very intense energy. It's like more than lightning struck, it's just completely exploding. And we have zodiac symbology, we have a white owl. It's a lot of energy. It is that cleansing destruction, for that which we have built up must be destroyed in order for something new to flourish from the ashes. Kind of a phoenix energy. The Star card is quite simply still called the Star, and it's that energy of, after that tower time, taking a moment of reflection, a moment to breathe and to reassess, and knowing that there is hope. These men see the hope in the distance of that star. The Moon card is, again, simply called the Moon, but we do have this baby imagery in the moon and a salmon here, which links to the tale of finding Mabon, who is the son of Modron. And Mabon, or Mabon, is taken from his mother when he is born, and there's a quest to find him, and that's what this card is embodying. It is the lunar, it is the feminine, it is seeking internal guidance and internal knowledge, even on an outward journey, and realizing that the lunar is both that intuitive inspiration and also the uncertainty and the fear. And this card is embodying both elements, and we find balance between the two to move forward. Then the Sun is represented by Mabon as a young man, a fully formed solar deity into himself. And he's riding a white horse. He is very shining and fully embodied in the divine masculine. And so this is combining the traditional joy and youthful exuberance of the Sun card with the divine male sexuality that is also part of this card. And it is just such a lovely and joyful card. Next, we have the 20th card, which would normally be the Judgment card, and it is the Sleeping Lord. And this is the idea of Arthur sleeping beneath the hills of Britain, waiting to be awoken when his country needs him most. It is a time of renewal and regeneration. And that's what Judgment is, really. It's renewal, regeneration, and eventually resurrection, which is also part of the Once and Future King tale. Finally, we have the World card, which in this case is the flowering of Logresse, Logresse being one of the ancient names for Britain. And it is that ultimate culmination, the joy. The wasteland has been healed. And this is the joy and success from that healed wasteland of the seeker now dancing with these children in this open field, and all is right with the world. I do hope you have enjoyed this look and journey through the major arcana of the Arthurian Tarot. If you have enjoyed it, please do like, comment, and subscribe. And you can check out my blog at roseofavalon.life for even more content. I'll link some blog posts in the description box below. And also, please do consider supporting me on Patreon. My Patreon is the Avalonian Rose Fairy Mysteries, and that is also going to be linked down below. I hope you have a wonderful week, everyone. Bye now.